Welcome to Part 1 of the lecture series on order of operations and writing a numerical expression. In this section, we will cover order of operations.
We will begin with evaluating expressions. The definition of a mathematical or numerical expression is a combination of numbers and operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Parentheses and exponents may also be involved in an expression. To evaluate an expression, we must find its numerical value. To find the numerical value of an expression, we must perform all indicated operations or actions using what is known as the order of operations. In order to describe the order of operations, I would like for you to meet my dear Aunt Sally. The first letters of the phrase, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally," is the acronym we will use to help us remember the order of operations. When calculating the value of an expression, we first evaluate the expressions that are inside the parentheses. We must calculate all the expressions in the parentheses and/or brackets and braces if they are present before calculating any other expression. Within the parentheses and outside the parentheses, we calculate the expressions in the following order. We evaluate expressions involving exponents. We then perform multiplication and division from left to right. That is, we start from the left performing multiplication and division in the order in which they occur in the expression. Finally, addition and subtraction are also performed from left to right. Now that we know the order in which the operations must be performed, we will consider some examples of evaluating mathematical expressions. In our first example, notice that we only have two operations, multiplication and addition. According to the order of operations above, multiplication is performed before addition. If you would add 5 plus 7 first, you would get an incorrect answer. Performing the multiplication here, we would end up with 5 plus 14, leaving us with our final answer, 19. In the second example, notice that the operations are division, addition, and subtraction. But we have to remember that division is performed before addition and subtraction. So we must divide 12 by 4, giving us 3 before we perform any other operation. Notice now that the only operations that are left are addition and subtraction, and according to the order of operations, these must be performed from left to right. Therefore, we will add 12 plus 6 first. When adding 12 plus 6, we will get 18. Now, from left to right, we would subtract 18 minus 3. When we subtract 3 from 18, we get 15, leaving us with a simple addition problem, giving us our final answer, 17. For our third example, we will look at a more complex problem. Notice that in this problem, we have braces, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So in this problem, we are covering all the different operations that are listed in our acronym. It is important to understand that when you have braces and/or brackets, you will treat those as if they are parentheses. And when you have both parentheses and brackets, as in this case, you must do the innermost parentheses and/or brackets first. Therefore, we will first evaluate the expressions inside of the parentheses. So we will find 2 plus 1 and 3 minus 4 before we evaluate anything else. 2 plus 1 is 3, and 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Notice also inside of the braces we have an exponential. We must evaluate 3 raised to the second power before we do anything else. When you raise a number to the exponent 2, that just means you multiply the number times itself. In this case, you would just multiply 3 times 3, which will give us 9. The next operation that we must perform is the multiplication that is inside of the brackets. That is, we will multiply 2 times 9 and negative 1 times negative 1. Recall when you have a negative in front of a parentheses, that just means you're multiplying that negative times what is inside of the parentheses, but it is like multiplying negative 1 times what is inside of the parentheses. When we do the operation of multiplication, we multiply 2 times 9, giving us 18, and we multiply negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1. We have removed the brackets because we no longer have parentheses inside of brackets. We must first perform the operation inside of the parentheses before doing any of the outer operations. Notice that we have addition and subtraction inside of the parentheses. Therefore, we will first subtract 3 from 18, giving us 15. The last operation inside of the parentheses is 15 plus 1. When we add 15 plus 1, we get 16. Now we have reduced the entire expression that was inside of the braces to the number 16. Notice that we have multiplication, division, and subtraction according to the order of operations. Multiplication and division are performed before subtraction, and they are performed from left to right. So the first thing that we will do is multiply 6 times 16. This gives us 96. Now we perform the operation of division, 96 divided by 3, which gives us 32. The last operation we must perform is 15 minus 32, which we can write as an addition problem, 15 plus negative 32. Recall from a previous series from this course that when we add a negative and a positive number, we must subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger absolute value and keep the sign of the larger number. When we subtract 15 from 32, we get 17, and then we carry the sign of the larger number. Example 4. For this example, we will use the order of operations on fractions. Notice that we have the operations of addition, division, subtraction, and multiplication. Multiplication and division must be performed before addition and subtraction. But since the division and multiplication are separated by a minus sign, we may perform these two operations simultaneously. To begin the operations, we first carry over the 1/2, and we also carry over the plus sign. We will not add and subtract until we only have the operations of addition and subtraction remaining. Therefore, we just carry over those two signs for now. We must now divide 2/3 by 1/4. Remember that in order to divide a fraction into a number, we must take the reciprocal of the divisor and then multiply. So in order to divide 2/3 by 1/4, we take the reciprocal of 1/4 and we multiply it times the first fraction. At this point, we will carry over the minus sign and we will write 5 as 5/1. This typically makes it easier for the students to see how to perform the multiplication. We will now carry over the 1/2. At this point, we will perform the operation of multiplication on both products. Performing multiplication in the first product gives us 8/3, and performing multiplication in the second product gives us 15/4. Notice that we only have the operations of addition and subtraction left. Before we perform the indicated operations from left to right, we will first find a common denominator for all three fractions. The smallest number that all three denominators will divide into evenly is 12. Therefore, in order to get a common denominator, we will multiply 1/2 times 6/6, 8/3 times 4/4, and 15/4 times 3/3. We will now perform the operation of multiplication on all three products, giving us 6/12 plus 32/12 minus 45/12. At this point, we perform addition and subtraction from left to right. Therefore, we will add the first two fractions. Adding these two fractions gives us 38/12, and then we subtract 45/12 from that result. Recall that we may rewrite this as an addition problem, giving us 38/12 plus negative 45/12. To add two numbers with unlike signs, we subtract the smallest absolute value from the largest and we keep the sign of the larger number. Therefore, we have 38 plus negative 45, which will give us -7, and we carry over the 12, giving us -7/12. This is our final answer. But I would like to point out that we can also write this answer as -7/12 with the negative in front of the fraction. The placement of the negative does not change the value of the number. For our last example, we will look at a problem that involves a square root, a number raised to a power, and an operation within parentheses. Of course, we have to do what is in the parentheses first. But in this case, we can simultaneously find the square root of 9 and raise 2 to the third power, and it won't change the answer. First of all, when we take the square root of 9, we get 3. When we raise 2 to the third power, we get 8, and when we subtract 1 from 3, we get 2. Now notice that we have multiplication, division, subtraction, and addition. We must do the multiplication and division before the subtraction and addition, and we must do multiplication and division from left to right. So we will multiply 4 times 3. Notice that we were also able to remove the parentheses from around the 2 because it doesn't change anything. When we multiply 4 times 3, we get 12. Again, performing the operations of multiplication and division from left to right, the division will come first. Therefore, we will divide 12 by 4, giving us 3. The next step would be to multiply 3 times 8, giving us 24. Notice the only operations that are left are subtraction and addition, and those must be performed from left to right. So we will first subtract 8 from 24, giving us 16. Then we will subtract 2 from 16, giving us 14. Notice that we have 0/7. Recall that 0 over any number except 0 itself is 0. Therefore, our last computation is just adding 14 plus 0, which just equals 14.